Welcome everyone to today's presentation, Accelerating Sustainable Product Use in the Building Space. My name is Maya Allman and I lead customer success for Ecomedes. We're really excited to have you all here today. We are also excited to have panelists from three of our customers, Herman Miller, Tarkett, and Saint-Gobain. I am going to give them just in a moment an opportunity to introduce themselves. We are also joined by Paul, who is our CIO from Ecomedes. Thanks everyone for being here. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. According to a recent AA study that came out in November of 2020, 79% of architects are looking to specify more sustainable materials for their buildings. And 82% look to manufacturers' website as the source of truth to find information on sustainable materials. But only 59% are very satisfied with what they're finding on those websites. In addition, 59% of these architects still feel that sustainable products are just too expensive. So in today's discussion, we are going to be going over the impact that the pandemic has had on material selection, ways to address the challenges of sustainable product transparency in the market, expectations for how we're going to see growth and demand in the market of sustainable products and how that's going to change over time and over the next year. And finally, the transformation of value engineering and value optimization in the building process. But before we get started, as I mentioned, I want to give our panelists an opportunity to present themselves and talk a little bit about what their organizations are doing to bring sustainability and transparency into the building space. So with that, I will let Gabe go ahead and start.
Hello, everyone. I just want to provide a brief introduction to Herman Miller, and I thought it would make sense to start with our purpose statement. And for those of you who aren't familiar with our company or our collection of brands, I would describe our organization as one that's values driven, and we happen to use design to identify and solve problems. And some of those problems are the everyday kind, and some of those problems are actually global problems. When we look at the collection of brands, we have grown dramatically over the past decade through acquisition and trying to align ourselves with organizations that share a common sense of purpose. And today, with this list of companies, we can kind of cover the entire floor plate from the contract side to the residential side and everything in between. And as I mentioned, one of the things that all of those brands share is a passion, a shared passion for creating a better world. And whether we call it CSR or ESG, the way that we talk about it at Herman Miller is this belief that we have an obligation to help create a better world. And I don't want to lead or read what's on the slide to the right, but I can tell you that for our entire journey as a corporation spanning more than 100 years, we've had a belief that we have a bigger mission than simply maximizing the amount of money we make. We believe that we've got an obligation to serve humanity.
Gabe, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Okay, thank you, Maya. Good afternoon. As Maya said, my name is Anne-Marie. I'd like to give you a brief overview of Saint-Gobain. Saint-Gobain is a global manufacturer with over 1,000 sites and 170,000 employees worldwide. We're headquartered in Paris. Our North American headquarters is in Malvern, which is just outside of Philadelphia. What we do is we design, manufacture, and distribute materials and solutions for many industries, including residential housing, commercial buildings, and infrastructure. We also have products within transportation, industrial applications, as well as the healthcare industry. And similar to Gabe, as well as Roxanne, our goal is to create products that provide comfort, performance, safety, and security while addressing sustainability needs. Next slide, please. My second slide here just highlights briefly the North American portfolio. As you can see on the right-hand side in the circle illustration, there are all of the logos that are familiar with North America. On the left-hand side, the core and shell and interior products category, which many of us on the call here participate. Our most familiar brand in North America is probably the Certainteed family of products. And the reason why I mention that is that's where we started with our sustainability initiatives for the North American market.
Thank you, and Roxanne.
Thank you. Roxanne Spears, and with Tarkett, we are an international flooring manufacturer for commercial and residential flooring. And it's interesting to see the number of years that all of us have been in business. Tarkett started over 140 years ago, and we've really been focusing for a long time on a holistic approach to sustainability. And again, as my peers here on the call, we are all trying to do the right things and make the impacts where we can, and making sure we're doing positive changes. Next slide. And so for Tarkett, we look at designing for life, closing the loop, and driving collaborations as 3 pillars as how we look at managing our business as well as sustainability.
Hey, thank you so much, Roxanne. And quickly, just to introduce Ecomedes for those of you that have not heard of it, we are a software company that is looking to help manufacturers like the ones we have on the webinar panel today, as well as the buyers find the right products for their projects, specifically around sustainability targets and transparency needs. So we're working to publish transparency data with products into the marketplace and make it easier to connect those 2 goals. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with our first question today. So the AAA survey that we referenced earlier indicates that designers are challenged in finding the product data that they need in order to buy sustainably. From your perspective for our panelists today, what do you think is behind that? Do you think that it's internal challenges, external challenges? What do you think's driving that challenge? We can go ahead and start with you, Anne-Marie, and then Roxanne.
Sure. Maya, I think we both have internal and external challenges. And I think main challenge is finding a good SharePoint that's accessible to our company internally as well as externally. We have many businesses throughout North America and throughout Europe, and each business has a slightly different spin on how their digital content is. And if 59% of the marketplace is happy, that would be nice. I mean, it's very difficult for us to find things, and finding a nice streamlined SharePoint is going to help with our digital content, which will help us illustrate what we do sustainability wise, and also help us with future customer needs.
I agree. It's both an external and internal drive. I'm always thinking, as we're looking at different ways to format information better, is that designers are looking at thousands of products for every senior project they do. And of those products, each can have their own CSI division that has different sustainability certifications or green building standards. So finding all the information in one location can be really difficult for them. So how do we help them with that? So for manufacturers, I think the internal challenge is, how do you make your website easy to access to show sustainability data, using a format either on our site or connected to a database system, and the format that designers really need and can understand. We also need to think about sustainability as a sales tool from a manufacturer side, moving our sales team to be more of a consultative sale than transactional. Being a trusted advisor, the sales teams need to have an understanding of how important this information is to designers in the buying process. And it's not just data, it's like it's really helping them being able to apply this for their projects, and how do we help them with that?
Absolutely. So there's an abundance of information and we're trying to keep it consistent. Paul, are these challenges reflected in the information that you're seeing in Ecomedes?
Yeah, what we've seen is, with the proliferation of lots of manufacturers providing product offerings, and sometimes in the hundreds, in some cases in product categories in the thousands, simplifying that mission is what's core to Ecomedes. And we see the usage. We also see people needing the ability to look at things apples to apples. As you can see on the screen, we have 3 drywall solutions, but there's a lot of information, whether it's HPD related, green guard related, recycled content related, and being able to see that stuff side by side very quickly, and then being able to find the thing that you most are looking for. In this example, the mold resistance or the fire rating could be one of the factors that intermingled of all the other data, they might need that to drive the performance. And that's what we're seeing more and more in-depth comparison tools being utilized within the platform.
Right. That leads me to kind of ask about what areas of information you're seeing demand for. So to our panelists, what are you hearing from the design and owner community in regards to their sustainable product needs and data? And how has that changed over time, if at all?
Yeah,
Gabe, we can start with you.
sure. I think what I've noticed over the past handful of years is where the conversation was historically very environmentally focused and lead centric. There's been a shift and an emphasis to recast the request through the lens of health and well-being. And I think that whole shift from talking about the environment, which sort of happens out there, to making it personal, where we start to adjust some of the health and well-being aspects, which makes it personal and interesting to a lot more people, has brought in the audience of people who are looking at sustainability. I think that's been one of the major shifts that I've seen. And then I think very acutely, what I've seen over the past 12 months is more and more of the tech sector is trying to look at what the carbon impact is from the products they're sourcing. And I think that's sort of the next gen set of data that we're gonna have to provide through EPDs and things like that. And then I wouldn't undervalue the growing trend that we're seeing on the investor side from the ESG perspective, where you've got leaders and organizations like BlackRock, Larry Fink, weighing in that he expects organizations where they provide capital to have this broader social mission. So I think all of those things together suggest that to me, that we're at this tipping point where we're going to start to see this grow, in some sort of stepwise change, like we saw in the early days of LEED.
I definitely have started to see a shift in request, and it's more we're hearing from our clients about a holistic approach to sustainability. They want to see that we're addressing our product impact, not just on people, health and well-being, but also planet. So looking at healthy raw materials, a circular economy business model, carbon footprint, energy and water use. Years ago, it was a simple question of, does your product have recycled content? Okay, it's a check the box, we're good to go. It's much deeper now. People have taken it more personally. They're looking at how they're living at home. They're talking and then taking that to work with them, and demanding employers are looking at these requests and really considering what does the CSR report look like from a manufacturer side, but as an employee. Tarkett has been working with the Harvard School of Public Health program, SHINE, and the Asthma and Allergy Foundation that really focuses on what's happening in buildings and a lot of that health data and how you look at designing facilities to meet that health and wellness and create diversity for employees. So we get a lot of that request now, where before it was a very simple one answer. I think now it's just much more detailed, which is great, and demanding what manufacturers meet some of these standards.
Right. So as more information is moving into the marketplace, consumers have different preferences, and they're definitely consistent with the challenges that we face this year. I do want to also mention quickly that we will have some time at the end for questions, so feel free to enter them into the chat box, and we'll get to them at the end. Paul, this increase in interest for health, has that shown up in the data that you're seeing in Ecomedes?
Yeah, so every month we take a look at all the different eco-label and certification-driven searches within the platform. And unsurprisingly, in the first quarter, we had 67% of all the health-related eco-labels being the predominant search criteria, with non-green serving about 33%. And over those first 2 quarters, there's a lot of focus on health-related, both single attribute and multi-attribute. And then towards the end in Q4, we saw this, as Gabe and some of the other panelists have talked about, this interest in APD, embodied energy, details around, the planet health. So it's kind of balanced out. I'm really excited to see what will happen in Q1 this year, but it's very important to kind of take a look at what is driving those searches, and then what product categories are being driven by those 2 major kind of attributes, in addition to all the other performance related things that are also very important in terms of energy efficiency, water efficiency, things like that.
Absolutely. So speaking of health, The good news is that vaccines are slowly but surely making their way through the country. What are your expectations for demand and operations as we return to a new normal? And what do you think a new normal is going to look like?
Well, Maya, I expect to see a continued reliance on digital platforms to share your technical marketing information, your EPDs, your HPDs, your LCAs, all of the transparency documentation. And having a strong digital platform will really help a sales team. I think that we talked earlier before this started about face-to-face travel constraints and how all of our travel basically disappeared in 2000, and it's not going to be that significant this year. And we just recently launched our portion of the Ecomedes portal. I think we were a little bit late to join the counterparts here on the panel, but I think it's going to benefit us tremendously. And, we continue to focus on sustainability as well as the health and well-being of our employees, especially during this challenging time.
Gabe, what about you? What do you think?
I think we've got people inside our organization been thinking about this quite a bit, and the whole phrase "new normal" is one of those words that I think everybody's getting maybe a little bit tired of seeing. But we're not seeing this scenario where it's going to be back to work as usual, and we're not going to continue to exist in this work from home model that I joked on one of our calls. Right, it seems like I've been spending this past year in my basement on calls just like this. I think it's going to be blended somewhere in between, and the idea of having this distributed work model where we're going to work to do the work that needs to be done when we collaborate. And it's less about finding out how to redistribute your space so everybody's 6 feet apart on a daily basis to create an environment that is compelling to your employees and allows them to be staggered and to be there when they need to be there. That's what we're thinking the future looks like. On our end, and just finding a way to create that environment that supports people where they're at. But I agree that on the digital side, that aspect's absolutely here to stay. And as we start to sell both on the contract side of our business as well as the residential, creating sort of the best of both worlds, where you create that digital experience that has the human touch, is sort of the art that we've all got to figure out.
For Tarkett, sustainability will continue to guide us on how we grow our business. That I don't see that changing at all. But I think it's important that we continue to educate our customers on sustainability. And really, it's going to be how you attract the next generation of employees. They have a heightened interest in sustainability, and they understand how that impacts everything. And they want to know what you as a company are doing as an employee, but also the young designers who are now making those selections want to know. We also see the digital technical transformation. We were not a big work from home company before. Some of us who are located outside of our Ohio areas were, but it's definitely a shift for everyone. And we're seeing that some of that will continue. So that will change how we operate businesses, and interacting with our customers will become more digital. I also see there's a shift to the circular economy business model. For instance, reuse and recycling are common concerns now for many types of industries, not just the flooring industry. Diverting old flooring from landfills has become as much of a concern for young designers and end users as the new products they choose. They really want to make sure that they're responsibly handling what's happening in their buildings. And so I think that is a shift that we're happy to see, but I think it's kind of a shift on how we're all going to be doing business as well.
Right, absolutely. So as more transparency information enters the market and it becomes more of a digital selling space, right? And people are caring more about health attributes and other factors. It's a more holistic point of view. Do you think that this whole myth that sustainability is more expensive is there a possibility that goes away, right? So that leads me to my last question. Are the prices of building products automatically more expensive? Is that what's being taken into account in that cost factor?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gabe. Do you want to start? Sorry.
Hey, if I start with that, I think that there is somewhat a myth to that notion that the sustainable products cost more. And I think if you start to look at all of the environmental impacts and the social impacts with the products that you purchase, if you don't shop based on just the initial price alone, I think more and more companies or decision makers would probably make different choices when you have the ability or the transparent of those things. And we're a long way from doing that. But in my opinion, I think we're getting closer and closer to having people, if they shop on their values, they're going to make the right choices.
Anne Marie, what do you think?
I was thinking of it a little bit more from the manufacturer point of view. I mean, sustainability probably could be a little bit cheaper if you're looking at your wastewater and energy. It really depends on what region you're in and what are your, what resources are more scarce or more costly. But coming back to a point that Roxanne made a little bit ago, reclaiming and recycling materials, it's still a little bit difficult because the infrastructure is not exactly well established. And in that regard, it could be a little more costly. But coming back to what Gabe just said, I mean, it is the right thing to do. You should be more responsible. You should be trying to incorporate and recycle and reclaim as much as you can within your products. And maybe putting it into something completely different, but just taking care of the environment again, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and there's definitely growing pressure from consumers that want to live and work in sustainable environments. So, they're now thinking more holistically maybe about their environment, so that as that pressure comes on to developers, costs will seem a smaller part. And I think a lot of times developers are looking at the first cost phase rather than what is the life cycle of this product? What's the maintenance of this product? How does it affect the performance of the building? How does it affect the operation budget of the building? And a lot of times those are not all interconnected. But overall, sustainable products do not need to be more expensive. And I think that they're really looking at that performance over its lifetime is a value that we've overlooked at times. So I think that is an important piece that we need to start having more relevance to.
Right. Quick follow-up question. Can you each share or touch on maybe a little bit of tangible evidence or examples that you have around this premise? Maybe we can start with you, Gabe. You may be on mute.
I am sorry. It seems like this is an ongoing problem, right? Two ways to mute yourself. I think as a profitable business, right, we're always looking at that sort of tension that I think Anne Marie and Roxanne touched on. And so when you look at our products and some of the changes we made over the years, I think unfortunately, there's no formula that says, hey, if I add like 10% more cost, I can pass it along or I can absorb it. But I think when you start to manage your product portfolio and your business, looking at its entirety, you can start to make trade-offs along the way. And so where you can recoup some cost savings from energy efficiency or water efficiency or waste minimization programs, and start to look at, can I take some of those savings and reallocate them to making some improvements across my product? And then working with, great example for us is the elimination of PVC in some of our wiring products. And we started out offering PVC free as an option on our systems or workplace products, and kept asking the question with our supplier, like, hey, if we make the change from PVC to non-PVC, what's the upcharge? And then as we drove more and more volume through options, we got to the point where it was a no cost upcharge, and then we made the change across the board. So I think you have to look at it creatively, but you have to do it in a way that protects the profitability of your business.
Roxanne, what about you?
Yes, starting about 2010, Tarkett started to set up processes for every product we manufacture. So we follow the cradle to cradle methodology for all of our products, whether they're certified cradle to cradle or not. And setting up that process meant that whether it was a low-end product or high-end product, we started changing certain raw materials we were using. So we went to phthalate free. And then as you know that we've moved on now from phthalate free is can we substitute a bio-based material? And it's a bit like Gabe says, you know, we're starting off small, so the bio-based material is a little bit more expensive. But we also see as our volume grows, that will start to balance itself out. So it's really for the manufacturers, how do you continue to innovate and create these new products? We have to make sure there's a customer out there for it and willing to use it, so that it helps us balance that need to really make something that we feel is the right thing to make, have the right impact in the environment and for people. So it's always that balance, but I think there are ways that you can implement processes to make it happen. And then performance standards with, you know, energy, emissions, water, all of those, I think all of us on the call have already implemented for all of our facilities to monitor the use. So we all know where the waste is at. We all have made adjustments so that our facilities operate at a really high performance level. And that can be a cost savings as well, but it's catching all of those things. So I think anymore, for most manufacturers, it's not really optional to not have certain standards in place anymore.
I think both Gabe and Roxanne make really good points about what you do internally. Internally, we do a lot of wastewater and energy challenges and competitions and, you know, best practices shared within our business segments. But then all of us on the call, we're all part of the LP50 community. And because there is a greater demand for a LEED certified building or different green levels and well certifications as well as, you know, in addition to that, I think what we're all working towards individually, we're creating better products. And I think we're moving the market into the right direction, because like Gabe had said, at first you take something that's PVC free or a low VOC product or something like that, and it has an upcharge, but then everybody else is doing it. So everybody's, you know, coming up to the same level. The competition is improving, the overall market structure is improving. And I think that's going to also help us all work in the right direction.
Right. And I know we have some sustainability veterans on the call. So how many years have you all dedicated your careers to sustainability? We got any answers on that?
Yeah, if I start, so it's going on 20 years for me. So just getting started.
15 years for me.
In and out of the space, I'd say about 7 to 10, because first starting in R&D, doing process improvements, going to EHS, and then going to sustainability. So I'd say probably the last 8-9 years really strongly on sustainability.
Oh, Paul, how about you?
22.
22. Wow. Sounds like maybe this true transformational change has really allowed it to pay off. So we thank you all for your service. That's the last question that we have, but we do have a lot of questions coming in. So I'm just going to take 1 second and try to read through all of the ones that are being sent to me and ask you a couple questions if you're all ready. Quickly, I can put up this information. Thank you all for attending. If you have other questions to ask me after the webinar, you can send me an email, or if you would like the recording. So let's start with, this one is for Paul. I've heard from a few reps recently that HPDs will start to encompass the data from EPDs as well. Any word on this or possible timing for product data to live in one place?
I think as all the panelists have said, is there's different flavors of this. So I look at it like a Rubik's Cube. There's lots of facades and faces and facets to it. I think there are going to be lots of consolidation points, but as we've learned and we've seen, every different product category might have a unique aspect of it, whether it's efficiency or energy or circularity. So I think those respective elements live best on those respective sites. So whether the HPD can have some EPD related information or vice versa, I think in the end, we're going to have to get the manufacturers to share with us and their customers the things that are most important within their category and within the construct of what the buyer really wants. Is it LEED? Is it well? Is it LBC? And I've seen projects want all three, and we see that in our system. We see how eco labels are then evaluated in our platform against the well standard LEED 4.0 or LBC. So I think it's an evolving thing. I wish it was all in one place. That would be certainly a dream come true, but that's why we built Ecomedies, to bring all that data together in one place.
Right. And for our panelists who deal with this, documenting these things for your products, are you seeing any demand or need for that information in one aggregated place?
I think that's the common thing we all look for. And that's why Tarkett went to Ecomedes, is we were really looking for one area to position everything or have everything so people could compare and have a common ground. And that's one resource that we've went to, but it's and even within there, you can't compare an EPD to an HPD. So if you're in Ecomedes and comparing products, at least you can look and see, okay, these products all have HPDs, or these have an EPD, and compare it in that format. But it's tough for designers and consumers trying to look at all these materials. And that's why that some format to hold it all together is really important.
Right. This question is for Roxanne. Can you elaborate a little bit on the Harvard project that you're working on?
So Harvard has in part of the Department of Public Health, they have an organization called SHINE. And SHINE does research on buildings and how people live in those spaces, in terms of, it could be, they've done airplanes, they've done offices, education, healthcare. And they measure the air circulation, they measure the ambient lighting, the acoustics, to see how that, if it's changed, how do people perform differently, how is the well-being of the people in the space, the productivity. So they're really trying to figure out, what is the best setting for people. So it's the TVOCs off of products, HVC system. So it's very encompassing. They've also done studies on different markets in terms of low income versus higher income. How are they, each group, affected by the buildings that are in their community, so that there's more equity in the building community. And it's on the Harvard website, the SHINE program. You can look at a lot of the papers they've done and the research, and it's a lot of good information.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that detail. If anyone wants to check it out, they can also follow up with me, and I can forward along some of those resources from Roxanne. This question just came in. It's funny. This is exactly what we were talking about before the webinar started. Maybe a bit off topic, but is there a way to calculate the environmental impact of telework? For example, less driving, more computers. Is there a shift from focusing on workplaces to home offices?
Yeah, I actually teed that up as we were waiting 10 minutes for this discussion to start. And I'd say I haven't found an authoritative resource yet, but I've got a group of my research team kind of looking at that. And so I think whoever asked the question is kind of heading in the right direction, is looking at the miles saved. There are banks that are starting to look at this as they move to a distributed model where you don't have to go to the corporate headquarters. If the average commute, at least in the US, is 32 miles, if you can shrink that to 6, so instead of driving to downtown to go to my bank, I can go to my local branch and work. That's the model, and that's the mindset that's taking place. And I think the missing piece on my end anyway is trying to find in or track down what's the server cost to host these types of meetings, so that you can start to weigh some of those comparisons. So I don't know that anybody else on the call has better data, but I think lots of people are asking the same question.
Right. Well, it sounds like help and data is on the way. Next question. I think, Roxanne, you may be the best equipped to answer this, as Tarkett is so focused on their circular economy approach. Concerning the shift to circular products, do you think that there could or should be a label for the footprint of circular products?
I do, and it's actually something we are working on. And I think it's really important that we start to show that circular approach, because that does take into account the life cycle, the maintenance of a product, and looking at the product in a more holistic sense. So I am hoping that we start seeing that on a lot of different products.
Great. Again, sounds like help is on the way. Anne Marie, maybe this one can be for you. I feel that during COVID, the supply chain of compression, especially for the harder to get sustainable products such as PCR bottles, has hurt my company's growth to become more eco-friendly. We manufacture liquid dissolvable cleaning products. We don't make RTU products, but we would love to get into the post-consumer resins instead of virgin plastics. How do you see the more environmentally friendly products getting out into the masses during this pandemic? And as a manufacturer that has, many brands and many different types of products, what's your take on this?
That's a very interesting question. I think there's a lot more pull because of COVID. I think there's a lot more awareness. We have many more questions and surveys coming in from prospective customers about, what's in your product, like Roxanne had mentioned with recycled content. And I'm also now seeing more advertisements because, like many of you, got extra time, you're watching some TV, you're watching whatever shows are on, and there's lots of information about products that don't contain the plastics, like the laundry detergent sheets. There's a lot more of a focus on how we can do better. There's changes within recycling programs in China. And I mean, we're working on things within ourselves as well. So it will be interesting. It will develop more, the more that is out there and the more that, potential customers are demanding it.
Right. So this question comes in directly from a lead AP that's probably purchased multiple of your products in the past. As a lead AP and specifier, greenwashing is a persistent challenge when researching products and materials. It would be immensely helpful to educate architectural sales reps in addition to having a dedicated team able to answer technical questions as a reliable resource. As manufacturers, what is your perception of the gap between questions being asked by designers and the information you're able to provide out on outward facing documents? Are there any gaps you are noticing in the process or in the process of addressing?
We do a lot of training for AIHA. We do a lot of training throughout different partnerships that we have. We also train and have certified green installers for different products that we offer. So I think helping the general public understand what is really meaning by sustainable products, what's being meant by green products. I know for a few years it was a little wishy-washy and greenwashing, whatever you would like to call it, and it was more difficult to understand. And we also try to do presentations and talks such as these to help people understand what is out there and what other companies offer with their education.
I'd agree with that. And I think one kind of gap I see a lot of times, we get the question of, do you have this certification? But they really don't want to know what that really means. And so to me, if you're asking what a cradle to cradle certification is, we would really like you to learn what comes behind that, because it's a lot of work for a manufacturer to be able to do those kind of products, investing time, innovation. And we'd like to be able to help you understand, why is this important? What's been done behind the scenes to get this product here, and why we see that as so important. So for me, that would be one is, and I think that's on the manufacturers as well, as we need to continually be educating and helping everyone understand, because there are just so many certifications.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point that Roxanne brings up, is I'll call it the NASCAR effect, right? In order to sell a product, it's got to be stickered with a million different stickers, and sorting out the noise and explaining what's comparable and what's not, right? Somebody will say, hey, I need to have Green Guard certification. You're like, well, I don't have Green Guard, but I happen to have Indoor Advantage SCS, and explaining that they're the same, or cradle to cradle versus BIFMA level, or the Green Tick program in Australia. I think in this world of like just diverging standards, getting consensus around like working on the most important things, and not getting hung up on what label or logo I have, but have I done the right work, and have I invested in my product to make it better, I think is where we need to be. But we're stuck on labels right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a very, very confusing world to navigate. There's a lot of eco labels and certifications out there. Um, okay, next question. What are you hearing from your customers about added antimicrobials due to COVID? Are they asking for them more than before or not? As a manufacturer, are you adding antimicrobials into products as a result of customer pressure or because you're actually concerned about COVID?
I can answer that just from a flooring perspective. We stopped using antimicrobials in our products about 7 years ago, partly because they were banned in Europe. They are considered a pesticide, so we stopped using them. And I have to say, through COVID, we maybe have had a few requests, but it hasn't been an onslaught to really make us think, do we need to go back and look at this? We didn't really see a need for that with flooring materials. They're fairly easy to clean without a lot of chemicals. So for us in our market, in terms of flooring, it's pretty easy for us to be able to stand by no antimicrobials, and that seemed to be acceptable for our customers. But it may be different for other products.
I think on the furniture side, I'd say the requests have gone up dramatically. And we do have an antimicrobial treatment that we can apply to products. And we've done a lot of research into it and feel like it's definitely safe. It doesn't promote superbugs. But I think if we were to consult with somebody on the best approach, I think what we do is take a lot of our healthcare design practices and try to extend those to the office environment. And so that means having sealed surfaces, durable, cleanable surfaces versus going straight towards I need antimicrobials. If you feel like you've got a need for it, we can offer it. But I think there's probably other ways to start with from a better design standpoint.
Yeah, I would agree with both Gabe and Roxanne, and focus more on, can you clean the surface? Is your surface durable? Do you have scrub resistance? Do you have, some sort of internal technology? I mean, if you're going to wipe something off your gypsum wallboard, is it going to disintegrate? Is it going to smear? I mean, and then working with other companies in conjunction, how to identify the best cleaning products and what does it really mean to be clean in that regard. I think if we were all designers of countertops and kitchen faucets, I think there'd be a lot more pressure.
We have another question that kind of dives a little bit more into what Roxanne had mentioned earlier, right, with the interest in recycling and kind of the closed loop, right? So how are you closing the loop on all products you're manufacturing? And how do we best specify on renovations items getting recycled, reclaimed, and diverted from landfills?
Well, to answer the last part, it really has to be written into the specification. If the GC and the flooring contractor and the demolition crew don't know that material is coming back and that's designated under the contract, it's not going to happen. So that's one key factor I think is really important. And for us, what we're taking back right now, a lot of it is material that's been installed for the last 15, 20 years. So not all of it would we want back into our products. So we work with partners who can recycle it into other materials that's usable. And then there's other material that we have installed that we do want back. It's a valuable raw material for us. We have a product, it's Ethos. It's a backing made with PVB film that's from windshields and safety glass. So we use that film from a car crash where the windshield is broken. We take the film and use it in the backing of our carpet. That we would like back. So it depends on each product, is processed a little bit differently. And it depends on how we can do it. So we either work with a partner to utilize it in one of their products, or we use it back in our material. And then having something written in the specification is key in helping getting those materials back.
Again, if I think about the question in the context of our business, we've been working with the folks from Cradle to Cradle since the late 90s. And that whole take back piece is super challenging, not just for carpet, but for furniture. And so today we've got a program called Repurpose. And it's a combination of of reselling used furniture, which is, believe it or not, still really hard to do. Most used furniture doesn't have much value. And then we'll try to donate what we can. So think of us match.com, where we've got a network of nonprofits across the US and Canada, where, like to Roxanne's point, you have to put it in the contract and you get involved early. It takes time to find that matches, but we'll take those no longer needed furniture and kind of distribute them to nonprofits who can give a second life to that furniture. And then we'll recycle the remaining balance of what we can't resell or reuse through that process today. So that's kind of been our solution. And then I think on the upfront side, we were part of an organization called Next Wave, which is focused on dealing with the growing ocean plastic waste, right? If we don't change the way that we deal with our litter economy, there's going to be more plastic than fish in the ocean by 2040. So we've recently set a target to add 380 tons of ocean-bound plastic to our new product offering. So I think we're trying to close the loop on that end as well. So that's the approach that we've taken at Miller.
I know ocean-bound plastic is a huge topic for a lot of manufacturers right now. That's definitely an initiative I'm seeing across the board. I think that this question, I'm going to do 2 more questions right now, and then we can kind of wrap it up. But this question, I believe, is going to be hopefully very helpful for some of the people watching this webinar. How difficult is it to gather environmental data from deep in the supply chain for your products? Do you have any good tips for communicating complex environmental data to non-environmental experts?
I would say it can be very challenging. And we have people in our sustainability group, on our product stewardship team, that work really hard. And I think the more you can track things through your supply chain, the better off you are. But to get all your environmental data, if you're going to do an LCA, can be quite challenging. We do partner with some of our utility companies to have more readily accessible information on wastewater and energy. If you track those metrics, it can be an easier place to start, but it's nothing that you can do overnight. You can't just flip a switch and get all that information. It takes a lot of time.
And Paul, I know this has, been kind of your dream for the past 22 years of translating this to people that don't have degrees in sustainability. What's your take on or do you have any tips for people that are trying to either enter the world of sustainability and they don't know where to start, or somebody that's maybe just trying to explain it to someone with less experience?
I think the power lies in just rolling up what is it they're trying to achieve. So if you're looking at circularity, there's plenty of tentacles of data that you can go after, but I think it's asking the question of, why are you searching for this? Why do you want this? And then driven off of whatever that value is, then kind of seeking out maybe a couple logos that belong on that NASCAR hood that matter to you, and then finding all the manufacturers for interior products that might engage ocean plastics. If that's your mission, go find products, whether it's a Frisbee or a chair. I think it's aligning what you really care about and then asking those right questions. But there's no easy button, as everyone said. It depends on what you think is most important. Is it health related, EPD related, recycled circularity related, or performance related? Is it watts and water and ROI? So I've had clients that fit all those buckets. So that's the only thing I've learned, is everyone defines sustainability in their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. And quick follow up to that, how has Ecomedes made it easier for people to digest this information or compare it?
So we have organized all the major eco labels and performance standards. We started with 15 characteristics of products back in the early days when I've met some of the amazing panelists. And now we have 2,500. So to keep the sanity, we've kind of bracketed them into things like ROI related, watts and water related, human health and planet health. And I find that those top 5 kind of encompass most of all the other ones. So if you care about ROI or you care about sustainability from an LCA perspective, there's a vein of data you can go down and all the way up to the supply chain. But it's all about like, what do you frame? Because you can't solve the Rubik's Cube on all 6 sides without touching the entire thing, right? You got to touch a little bit of everything, and you got to pick a color to solve first, and then the second one. So that's kind of what our journey is about. And we're just so excited to have great partners that teach us something every day. So
yeah, definitely. I think putting it all in one place is the theme that's coming up time and time again throughout this discussion. Okay, this is our last question. I'd love to hear from all of our panelists on this one. What pressure points can designers and architects lean into to help continue accelerating the demand for green products and innovation from manufacturers?
Write it in the specification. Use the innovative products that are already out there so that it pushes all of us to do more, and ask us. If you've got something specific you want, ask us and we can see if we can solve the problem.
Yeah, I think Roxanne's exactly where my head is. Right? If we have a customer who wants something, we can move mountains, and I don't want to disparage like my team, but we're just the sustainability team. But if you can point to a customer, it's amazing how fast you can marshal the resources of your organization to get something done. So I think there's a lot of power and influence with the design and construction community. If they ask for it, boy, we can do it.
Yeah, I would I would echo Gabe and Roxanne. If we don't know that that's your need, then maybe we're not working towards that. But the voice of the customer is huge, and you need to ask for it. And it's amazing how fast things fly through an innovative process, because there could be something on the shelf that you have a similar idea or something that would fit. But unless we know, we need to understand what the customers need so we can focus our development better.
Right. Okay. Well, there's your answer to all the attendees. Ask and you shall receive. Okay. That is going to conclude our conversation today. I want to say thank you to our panelists and to Paul for taking the time to develop a great webinar for our attendees today. And thank you so much to everyone that made this webinar. Your questions were amazing. I just want to say kudos to you for some really, really great questions. Thank you, everyone. If you'd like the recording of this webinar, you can go ahead and send an email. My email is right there, maya@ecomedies.com. If you want to see some of the sites that we've been mentioning throughout the webinar, the URLs are right there. I can send out this slide as well with the recording so that you have the links. But go check out Herman Miller, Tarkett, and Saint-Gobain sustainable products. They've worked really hard to publish their transparency data out into the marketplace in an easy to understand format. So thank you everyone so much.